The motorcycle industry hides a dark secret. Thousands buy new bikes every spring and leave them rotting in garages by October. Their excuse? No time to ride. They are lying. The truth is fear, frustration, and pain. Today, we expose the 10 fatal mistakes forcing riders to quit in 6 months. We reveal the exact measures to survive the beginner phase and protect your bank account. Wait for the final trap. We examine a mental block that destroys riders overnight. You must know how to defeat it. Let us begin. Number 10. The massive ego bike. The journey begins at the dealership. A new rider walks onto the showroom floor. They hold a fresh motorcycle endorsement in their wallet. They look at the lightweight 400cc beginner bikes. Then, their ego takes over. They listen to the toxic gatekeepers. They hear the voices saying they will outgrow a small bike in 2 weeks. The rider signs a finance contract for a 1000cc superbike or an 800-pound bagger. They buy a machine designed for professional racers or veteran cross-country tours. The motorcycle absolutely terrifies the rider. The superbike features a throttle that acts like a light switch. A millimeter of movement snaps the rider's neck back. The massive bagger feels like balancing a refrigerator on a tightrope. The rider stalls the engine at every red light. They dread pulling the bike out of the driveway. The sheer weight and explosive power turn every ride into a stressful, sweat-inducing survival mission. The fear overwhelms the fun, and the bike stays parked. You must kill your ego. Buy a used, lightweight, 300 or 400cc motorcycle. Buy a machine you can flat foot at a stoplight. Buy a machine that forgives your clumsy throttle inputs. Riding a slow bike to its absolute limit provides pure joy. Pinning the throttle on a small machine, banging through the gears, and utilizing all the available power builds immense confidence. You master the machine. The machine does not master you. You smile inside your helmet because you control the chaos. If you want to build real skill and avoid the beginner traps, hit the subscribe button right now. Join a community of riders who value technique over engine size. Buying too much engine causes fear. Buying a rolling trash can cause frustration. The next mistake steals your entire weekend. Number 9. The maintenance black hole. New riders often want to save money. They bypass the expensive dealership showrooms. They scour the internet classifieds for vintage bargains. They find a 1980-something Japanese cruiser for $800. The seller smiles, kicks the dry-rotted tires, and claims it just needs the carburetors cleaned and a fresh battery. The naive new rider buys a neglected project bike. They think they will learn to turn wrenches, restore a piece of mechanical history, and ride a classic machine for pennies. They drag the rusted relic into their dark garage. The rider discovers the brutal reality of vintage motorcycle repair. The seller lied. The rubber intake boots resemble cracked plastic. The steel fuel tank hides a thick layer of flaking orange rust. Every single steel engine bolt strips or snaps the moment a hand wrench touches it. The factory wiring harness is a chopped, melted rat's nest of cheap electrical tape. The rider spends Saturday morning covered in toxic grease, breathing raw fuel fumes, and bleeding from their busted knuckles. They wait weeks for discontinued replacement parts to arrive in the mail. They drain their bank account buying specialized diagnostic tools. Sunday morning arrives with perfect riding weather. The veteran riders hit the twisting canyon roads. The new rider sits alone on a plastic milk crate, staring at a dismantled engine that refuses to generate a single spark. The frustration builds. The rider realizes they spent their entire summer acting as a miserable amateur mechanic instead of an actual motorcyclist. They surrender. They sell the pathetic pile of metal parts in cardboard boxes for a massive loss. They walk away and never ride again. Your very first motorcycle must run. Buy a modern, fuel-injected motorcycle with less than 10 years of age. You need a machine that starts with the push of a single button. You want to spend your precious weekends carving through mountain passes, smelling the pine trees, and leaning into the sharp corners. You want to twist the metal key and hear a reliable, modern engine hum to life without choking or sputtering. Buy a working machine. Save the romantic vintage restoration projects for your 5th year of riding when you already own a reliable daily commuter to ride. Wrenching on garbage ruins your summer. Wearing garbage ruins your physical body. The next fatal error turns a beautiful sunny day into a physical nightmare. Number 8. The cheap gear misery. A new rider drains their entire bank account to purchase their dream motorcycle. They hold the metal keys. They have a grand total of $50 left in their wallet. They walk into a discount retail store. They buy a cheap plastic helmet. They buy thin gardening gloves. They ride in a thin cotton hoodie and canvas sneakers. They ignore the elements. They fail to understand that riding a motorcycle exposes the human body to extreme, relentless environmental torture. One cautionary tale repeats every single spring. A young rider took his new sport bike into the high mountains on a sunny afternoon wearing a cotton t-shirt and cheap sunglasses. He ignored the weather forecast. The sun set behind the jagged peaks. The ambient temperature plummeted 20 degrees in 10 minutes. The ride turned into a survival situation. The wind cut through the thin fabric, freezing the sweat on the rider's chest. He suffered hypothermia. His bare fingers went numb. He lost the physical ability to squeeze the clutch and the front brake lever. He survived the mountain descent by pure luck. He crawled down the gravel shoulder in first gear to stay alive. The cheap helmet lacked aerodynamic engineering. The highway wind caught the plastic shell, shaking his head like a violent ragdoll. The wind noise screamed through the unsealed visor, causing instant tinnitus and a massive headache. He returned home shivering, deafened, and miserable. He associated motorcycling with physical suffering. He sold the bike a week later. He quit the sport for good. Budget for quality safety gear before you walk into the dealership to buy the motorcycle. Set aside $1,000 for your impact armor. Buy a full-face helmet featuring wind tunnel testing. Buy an armored textile jacket with a removable thermal liner. Buy heavy leather gauntlet gloves. Proper gear creates a sealed microclimate. Wear a premium helmet and a windproof jacket, and the harsh elements disappear. You ride in absolute comfort. You cross state lines without fatigue. You extend your riding season into the crispy autumn months because the cold wind bounces off your impact armor. Comfort equals endurance. Freezing in the wind causes preventable misery. Riding a torture rack causes chronic spine pain. The next poor decision sends new riders straight to the chiropractor. Number 7. The ergonomic torture rack. Motorcycles are visual art. A new rider sees a sleek, aggressive Italian superbike. They see the sharp fairings, the low clip-on handlebars, and the high foot pegs. They fall in love with the aesthetic. They buy the motorcycle based on how it looks parked in front of a glass window. The rider purchases a track-focused weapon for daily street riding. They completely ignore the geometry of the human skeleton. The rider mounts the machine. The ergonomics force their body into a fetal position. Their knees fold up to their chest. Their lower lumbar spine arches into a painful curve. They support their entire upper body weight on their fragile wrists. The ride begins. In 20 minutes, the wrists burn with lactic acid. The neck cramps from looking up through the top of the helmet visor. The thin strip of seat foam offers zero cushion against the harsh suspension. Every pothole sends a shockwave through the rider's spine. The rider cuts the trip short. They require a bottle of ibuprofen and an ice pack after every commute. The motorcycle becomes an instrument of torture. Sit on the motorcycle at the dealership for 20 full minutes. Do not move. Put your feet on the pegs. Grab the bars. If your back aches in the showroom, it will break on the street. Buy a naked bike. Buy an adventure bike. Buy a machine with standard upright handlebars and a neutral peg position. Upright ergonomics allow you to command the machine. You look over traffic. You breathe easy. You ride for 4 uninterrupted hours, drain the fuel tank, stop for a burger, and ride 4 hours back home. You feel completely fresh. Pain ruins the weekend. Stalling out ruins the passion. The next trap locks the rider in a cage of miserable routine. Number 6. The commuter burnout. A new rider catches the deadly bug. They love their first month of riding. The thrill of the open road consumes their mind. They decide to embrace the riding lifestyle. In a moment of blind enthusiasm, they sell their reliable climate-controlled car. They commit to riding the motorcycle 365 days a year. The rider forces the machine to become their sole source of practical daily transportation. They ride to the downtown corporate office. They ride to the crowded grocery store. They ride to the dentist in the freezing cold. A dedicated novice decided to commute through a brutal winter storm. The magic vanished. He woke up on a pitch-black Tuesday morning. A cold, miserable, freezing rain hammered the cracked pavement. The rider must put on thick, restrictive waterproof gear, trudge into the wet, freezing garage, and navigate gridlocked, miserable rush-hour traffic. He sat trapped behind a massive commercial diesel exhaust pipe, pulling the heavy metal clutch lever 100 times just to move 3 miserable city blocks. The freezing rain leaked through his tight collar and pooled inside his heavy leather boots. He arrived at the corporate office soaked to the bone, angry and exhausted. His coworkers stared at a shivering, miserable mess holding a dripping wet helmet. The beloved motorcycle transformed from a beautiful instrument of pure freedom into a mandatory, miserable chore. The deep passion dies a brutal, sudden death. That specific rider bought a cheap, rusted sedan the very next week and parked his expensive machine in the dark corner of his garage forever. He never rode it again. Keep your car. Protect the sacred nature of the two-wheeled ride. A motorcycle is a dedicated escape vehicle. It functions as a vital mental health tool. When you reserve the motorcycle for sunny Sunday mornings and twisty canyon roads, every single ride feels like a perfect vacation. You twist the heavy throttle because you want to, never because you have to. You maintain the romance of the mechanical beast. You keep the fire alive in your heart. Daily commuting kills the pure joy. Dropping the heavy bike kills the fragile ego. The next massive mistake is a public humiliation that breaks the rider's spirit. Number 5. The 0 mile/hour drop. The new rider feels confident. They navigate the neighborhood. They pull into a crowded gas station or a busy restaurant parking lot. They spot a parking space. They roll forward at 2 miles per hour. The rider turns the handlebars to full lock. They grab a handful of the front brake lever. The physics of a motorcycle dictate a harsh penalty for this action. The front forks compress. The massive weight of the machine shifts forward and off-center. The motorcycle snaps down to the asphalt. The rider falls over in slow motion, and the heavy metal crushes their legs. Fairings scrape against the concrete, producing a sickening crunch. The engine stalls. The rider scrambles to their feet. A crowd of strangers watches from the restaurant patio. The rider feels a hot rush of pure shame. They attempt to lift a 400-pound machine, but their adrenaline and poor lifting technique fail them. A stranger must help them pick up their broken pride. The rider surveys the scratched engine case, the snapped clutch lever, and the cracked turn signal. The embarrassment scars their mind. They ride home in silence. They never pull the bike out again because they fear a repeat performance. Understand the physics of slow-speed maneuvers. Keep your eyes up. Never touch the front brake when the handlebars are turned. Use the rear brake to drag the bike to a smooth stop. Install heavy-duty steel crash bars on your first motorcycle. Crash bars act as a force field. If you drop the bike, the steel cage takes the hit. The plastic remains pristine. You pick the bike up, laugh at your mistake, and keep riding. You remove the fear of gravity. You experiment with tight U-turns because the penalty for failure is 0. Fear of dropping the bike limits your parking. Fear of the highway limits your world. The next hazard is a terrifying wall of wind. Number 4. The highway terror. The new rider spends 2 weeks circling their quiet suburban subdivision. They master the stop signs. They master the cul-de-sacs. They feel ready for the next step. They aim for the massive, multi-lane interstate highway. The rider merges onto the highway with zero understanding of high-speed aerodynamics. The rider hits 70 miles per hour. The wind blasts their chest, acting like an invisible parachute. Their helmet lifts off their head. The rider panics. They grip the handlebars with a death grip, transferring all their body tension into the steering. The motorcycle begins to wobble. A massive 18-wheeler semi-truck passes them in the left lane. The truck punches a massive hole in the air, creating a violent wake of dirty, turbulent wind. The invisible vortex slams into the rider. The motorcycle shoves 2 feet to the right. The rider feels like a helpless leaf caught in a hurricane. Their hearts hammers against their ribs. They take the very next exit, pull into a parking lot, and shake with pure terror. They decide motorcycles are death traps. Avoid the interstate for your first year. The highway teaches you nothing about riding. It is a straight, boring, windy slab of concrete. Focus entirely on the secondary country roads, the 2-lane blacktop. Master the art of cornering at 45 miles per hour. Learn to link sweeping curves together. Feel the rhythm of the machine. The back roads offer scenery, technical challenges, and joy. Leave the straight-line interstates to the minivans. Are you making these beginner mistakes? Stop the cycle. Hit the like button and leave a comment below telling me about your worst beginner mistake. We learn from our failures. Let us look at the silent killer of passion. Number 3. The isolation trap. A new rider buys their gear. They buy a reliable bike. They conquer their fears. They ride every single weekend. They explore every road within a 50-mile radius of their house. The rider does this entirely alone. They have 0 friends who ride. They do not know a single person who shares their passion. The novelty wears off. Motorcycling becomes a solitary, silent activity. The rider explores a beautiful mountain overlook. They park the bike. They take off their helmet. They look around. They have nobody to share the view with. They ride to a famous diner. They sit in a booth alone, eating a burger, staring at their phone. The silence breeds boredom. The rider runs out of destinations. The thrill of the machine fades because humans require shared experiences to validate their passions. The motorcycle sits in the garage for 2 weeks, then a month. The rider sells the bike to fund a different hobby. Motorcycling is a massive, global brotherhood. You must seek out the community. Find a local riding group on social media. Attend a local bike night at a coffee shop. Riding with a pack transforms the experience. You share the dangers, you share the triumphs. You park the bikes, kick the tires, and talk about engine specs for hours. You learn new routes. You build lifelong friendships with people who understand the call of the road. A shared ride is a memorable ride. Boredom kills the passion. Hitting a wall in your ability kills the thrill. The next pitfall leaves the rider feeling incompetent. Number 2. The skill plateau. The new rider takes the basic weekend safety course. They learn to weave through orange cones at 10 miles per hour. They pass the test. They get their license. They believe they know everything required to operate a motorcycle. The rider stops learning. They treat the basic licensing course as the finish line instead of the starting line. The rider hits the canyon roads. They approach a sharp corner. They enter the turn carrying too much speed. Panic strikes. They stiffen their arms. They stare directly at the steel guardrail on the outside of the turn. The motorcycle goes exactly where the rider looks. The bike runs wide. The tires cross the double yellow line. The rider barely survives the corner. This happens over and over. The rider feels incompetent. They feel like a passenger on a runaway missile. They realize they lack the fundamental skills to command the machine at speed. The fear of crashing replaces the joy of riding. They refuse to invest money in advanced training. They quit. Accept that motorcycling requires a lifetime of learning. The basic course teaches you how to operate the controls. Advanced courses teach you how to survive. Book an advanced parking lot agility course. Book a beginner track day with professional instructors. And when you learn the science of trail braking, the physics of countersteering, and the discipline of visual focus, the motorcycle transforms. You dive into a corner. You look through the apex. You roll on the throttle. You feel the suspension settle. You drag a knee. You experience the ultimate mechanical dance. Education unlocks the true potential of the machine. Do you like this video? Click that like button. And if you want to support us even more, become a member, have early access to the newest videos. We have reached the final trap, the absolute worst scenario. This single event causes thousands of riders to walk away from the sport forever. Number 1, the close call trauma. The rider does everything right. They wear the gear. They ride a reliable machine. They practice their cornering. They cruise down a multi-lane city street on a Tuesday afternoon. The rider assumes the cars around them see the motorcycle. They relax their guard. They ride in the blind spot of a massive SUV. The driver in the SUV looks at their smartphone. They drift across the dotted white line. They swerve directly into the rider's lane. The rider faces sudden, violent death. They grab the brakes. The tires screech. The massive steel bumper of the SUV misses the rider's front tire by 2 inches. The driver never looks up. The driver continues down the road, completely oblivious to the murder they nearly committed. The rider pulls over to the shoulder. Their heart explodes in their chest. Adrenaline floods their veins. Their hands shake so violently they cannot turn the ignition key off. They experience a profound psychological shock. They realize their life depends on the competence of strangers in cars. They realize how fragile the human body is against thousands of pounds of rolling steel. The trauma takes root. The rider nurses the bike home. They park it in the garage. They walk inside, lock the door, and never touch the machine again. The mental block is permanent. The close call broke their spirit. You must accept the brutal reality of the street. You are invisible. Every single car on the road represents a lethal threat. You must adopt a hyper-aggressive, defensive riding posture. You never ride in a blind spot. You cover your brake levers at every intersection. You watch the front tires of the cars waiting to turn. The tire moves before the car moves. When you master defensive riding, you control the matrix. You predict the actions of the cars before the drivers even make a decision. You see the gaps. You execute evasive maneuvers with cold, calculated precision. You transform from a potential victim into a ghost, slicing through the chaos of the city. You own the road. Click the next video to continue the road trip. Join our tribe by subscribing. And don't forget to like this video.